Welcome to another episode of the Booktroverts podcast with your two favorite gals. I'm McKayla.
I'm Meg.
And today we are chatting about the highly anticipated sequel to Say You Swear, which is Promise Me Not by Meagan Brandy. As a quick rundown, we will be sharing the book description, our overall rating, and then breaking down twists and shocking moments, thoughts on the plot in each of the characters, and whether or not we think it lives up to the sequel hype. So definitely will be spoilers in this episode. So if you haven't read it yet and you don't want to be spoiled, I would pause and come back. But if not, we can jump right in. So Meg, do you want to give us the description?
Yes. All right. So she lost her first love. I give it all to be her second. For as long as I can remember, I've had one dream: go to college with my best friends, earn a starting position on a Division I team, hear my name announced to the world come draft day. The path was clear, things were falling into place perfectly, until she showed up. I never meant to fall for my friend's little sister, and by the time I realized I had, it was too late. I am a man in love with a girl who is in love with someone else, but I can't compete with a ghost, and her heart is buried alongside the boy she gave it to, the father of her unborn son. Instead of fighting for something she's unable to give, I do my best to be her friend, but then her little man comes along and changes everything. She says I should walk away, focus on my love for football, but I can't, because she doesn't understand is I have a new dream now, and one begins and ends with them. All right. That was a lot in a description. What did you have for your overall rating of this of this book?
Can I just tell you, it is so painful for me to give this rating because Say You Swear, I read it over 2 years ago. I gave that book automatic 5 stars, but like if I could have, it would have been 6 stars. And I just remember telling everyone to read that book because
Yeah.
it was just so emotional. And I have been waiting for this sequel forever because I think it was supposed to come out in January and it just kept getting pushed. So, like 2 years waiting for this book, and I had to give it a 2.5. Honestly, for me, I just really felt like it lacked emotion just in general, but like especially compared to the first book, it was so toned down and watered down on that aspect. And it didn't really feel like it had a real plot to it. We were just kind of following these characters, but we weren't getting to an angle. Like the whole time, you're just trying to figure out like what was this random thing that caused them to not be talking right now.
Yep.
And just to be very transparent, if it was not for the fact that we were recording this episode, I honestly probably would have DNF'd this book in the first 20% because I was so freaking confused. And my disclaimer here, and let me know if you agree with this statement, I would not classify this series as interconnected standalones.
No.
Because I didn't reread the first one before going into this one, and I think that was a mistake because I was so confused. Who are all these characters? Like I forgot how everyone was connected with each other, and I was having such a hard time because I really couldn't remember Peyton from the first book. And I remember texting you like, what is going on? You were able to fill in some holes for me, but you are really just thrown in the beginning, in the middle, and it was so hard for me to figure out like what the fuck is going on. And you're bouncing between that dual timeline where it's the year prior and now. It felt like the first 25% of the book, I could not get a grasp on what was happening, when things were happening, who the characters coming in were. So yeah, honestly, if it wasn't for this, I probably would have DNF'd it, which breaks my heart to say. What did you rate it?
Yeah. So I'm with you on everything. I rated it a 3, and I think I was being very generous because I loved the first one. So to your point, easy 6 stars for the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Probably if I reread it, I think it would have helped with the characters and remembering. So to your point again, I don't think they're really too much of a interconnected standalone. Just because with this one specifically from Peyton's side, there's a lot of people that are within her brother's realm. So it's her brother and his girlfriend or wife, I can't remember, and then there's another couple. And I know that there are 2 books that actually describe their love story way before, but there were too many characters for me to remember. So I kind of just said, is this person even important? If not, I'm going to get rid of them from my mind and just focus on the main characters and the main crew that kind of came with me, with Mason and his sister Ari. I did say that I just wanted to know what happened so bad, like you said, with the two, the dual timelines, because I just didn't understand why there was such an issue because we kept getting, I don't know what happened. She won't talk to me. From Mason's point of view, he was just so concerned he wanted to be there. I mean, I know that the whole thing's gonna be spoilers in this in the in the pod, but like her baby daddy is dead. He's not around. Mason has been this kid's dad since literally he was born. And I understand that there must be so much going on in her brain to go between the two guys. I can't even imagine that. I literally have it in my notes 5 billion times as I cannot imagine being in this situation. So maybe for me, I'm just not, it's not hitting as deep as it could be. But I mean, he literally was there so much, and I just wanted more for Mason. I really did. I loved him in the first one, and I really was excited to get his story. And you could kind of sense that him and Peyton were going to be a thing. Granted, I also read the other book a couple months ago, so I think I have more of it in my mind of compared to
Mm-hmm.
you for 2 years. But I just wanted more from him. Is probably my general. Here you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you make a really great point. I think because I've never, like, I've had people pass away in my life, but not people I was super close with, definitely not a romantic, partner,
Yeah,
definitely not someone that is the father of my child. So I can't even relate to that experience.
yeah.
And yeah, maybe if I had that life experience, I would understand more of what she was going through and be able to understand and relate to her more. But as someone who hasn't, I was just getting frustrated with her.
Yeah.
I get you're trying to process your emotions and deal with feeling like you're betraying someone who's no longer here because you're getting to continue living your life and go on and be happy. But it got to the point where it's like, okay, this is the only thing you are talking about. It felt like there was nothing else to her character outside of this just like indecisiveness.
I'm with you. I feel like you're kind of going into more of the plot and Peyton. So I kind of,
Yeah, sorry.
no, 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 it's okay. I wanted to hear more because I feel like there's so much more that could be said for the two of them.
Yes. Hmm.
Not the two of them, but the plot and her. But I'm with you. It was just all the grief. And I've read other books that have grief that are a big part of the story, but there's a lot of other things. Um, One thing I had said is I really enjoyed two timelines, dual timelines, but I kind of wish we just started where it was now. We got, okay, she won't talk to me. I don't know what I did, or, maybe there was something and I'm trying to fix it. And then stop in the present and go to the back and then just bring us along to the explosive thing and then have a huge argument, whatever conversation, because there were so many different little conversations that were happening in the present time that I think if we just lumped that all into one, it would have been better, in my opinion. And I probably would have liked it way more. If the grief was still there, that's fine, but at least don't give me so much back and forth because it was whiplash. It was such a whiplash the whole
Yes.
time.
That is the perfect word to describe it. I also don't usually mind a dual timeline, especially I'm thinking when you have like childhood friends to lovers books, but normally the past is years in the past, like 5 to 10 years or even more. And so it's very clear, like, okay, these are children I'm reading about, and now
Yeah.
these are them as adults. It's easy to understand. This, it was literally like last summer and this summer. Also, what got confusing for me was the way it was written at the beginning of the chapters. It would say like Mason before July. The next chapter would be Mason now July. And it was confusing because we were getting the same month, but in
Yeah.
two separate years. And because they're only a year difference, it's hard even just like from the writing to be able to distinguish, okay, is this last year, is this year? You really had to pay attention to that timeline distinguisher at the beginning of the chapter. I hope that makes sense. Obviously you can tell from Peyton's chapters if she's talking about her belly, clearly this is the year prior, but Mason's feelings were consistent throughout the whole time. So it was hard, especially with him, to know, is this you then, is this you now? Also, if you happen to have to stop in the middle of a chapter and then pick it back up, it was so hard when you picked it back up to be like, where the fuck am I in this timeline? So that was my other point. It's just a style choice that the author chose. And I felt like the book would have been much easier and more enjoyable as the reader to have started it when she comes to the beach pregnant and then just gone linear from there, because I think you would have had more of an emotional impact because you would have went through that roller coaster with them. I couldn't even enjoy the past timeline when they were getting along and flirting with each other, because I knew like, okay, well, I know that they're not talking to each other right now, so I'm not going to get emotionally invested in this.
Yeah. You know what book it reminds me of in terms of the timelines, and you mentioned the friends to lovers thing, was People We Meet on Vacation. And you know how that one was, we hadn't talked in 10 years and there was such an issue, and then they went back and they went through all of the series of each vacation that had their,
Mm-hmm.
significant moments, and then they went back to the now every so often. That I think would have been really good in terms of a
Yeah.
back and forth. And then to
Mm-hmm.
your point about the at the beginning of the chapter, I just personally have an issue with this, and I think it might just be because I kind of skip a little bit sometimes when I'm reading, and I know
Mm-hmm.
that's a problem that I have.
I do the same
I've
thing.
mentioned it multiple times, but you know what? I really enjoy when authors do it. Instead of a chapter, or you give me the chapter name, but put their name and the timeline in the middle at the beginning of the page, and then the rest of the half page.
Nice and bold, you can't miss it.
Something that is
Yeah,
slap me in the face with this information, because
I
I'm
completely agree.
I need it. I can't without it. So for me, screw the chapter names. I don't need chapter 1, 5, whatever. Like give me just names of the character
Yeah,
and that stuff, and I'd be totally fine.
I completely agree. It's like a little thing right at the beginning of the
Yeah.
text, and yeah, if you're just like quickly going, you can miss it. Also, I feel like sometimes I read stuff and I don't fully process it, and then I kept having to go back like, wait, is this past or now?
Yeah.
And it was switching like every chapter or every two chapters, so it just felt like you would finally get into it, you're
Yeah.
pulled back out.
Yep.
So that's hard because that's just a style choice that the author chose. And personally, I just didn't feel like that was the right way to tell the story. I wish it was just told linear. I feel like then you would have went on more of a journey and it would have matched the style of the first book.
Yeah. And I think too, the first one had a lot of that trauma, the stuff that was going on, her losing her memory for a decent amount of months. It was
Mm-hmm.
the huge amount of short-term memory. And there was that going back and forth of the sense of, let's teach her the things again, get her to remember Noah, all of that stuff. And they did go farther back where she had met Chase, and how that kind of impacted their situation.
Yeah.
But this one, I think there was too much, because like you said, Mason was just such a steady, I love Peyton, that's where I'm at. I did not realize it was going to happen that fast, and then when the baby came along, it was as if his love completely grew. And I mean, there was one
Mm-hmm.
point, obviously one point, 'cause she had the baby once, but when when right after she had Deaton, the nurse says, "Okay, Dad, time to cut the cord." And in that moment, you can't say anything of, "Oh, I'm not the dad, but I've been here through the
Mm-hmm.
entire labor, so, whatever."
Yeah.
And then we just, showed our love for each other in a weird way as well, like when the baby was born. But that specifically to me, I think just hit Mason and said, "Okay, yeah, I am this kid's dad. I don't
Yeah.
care
He
what
was
people
fully
say."
in.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. The other thing with the timeline was I felt like because you were going back and forth and you're getting so frustrated, like, okay, clearly they like each other, they're getting along here. He's in the labor and delivery room. Why is she not speaking to him here? It really felt like, okay, it must have been this huge thing that happened between the two of them to go from like one extreme to the next. Like literally watching her give birth to a human to I'm not even going to answer his text messages.
Yeah.
And then when we got to the point of where we find out what actually happened, to be honest, I'm not even clear what the reason was. If it was just like she got in her own head and she was just like, well, I feel guilty because I'm betraying Deaton and, I'm taking Mason's life away from him because now he's going to be tied down to me. Like, what if he leaves? I think that's what the actual reason was, but he didn't actually do anything to her. She just made up this whole thing in her head and then refuse to communicate about it, which is just another trope I really don't like. I hate the miscommunication trope because it just frustrates me. If you just talk, this would have been solved. But this was beyond miscommunication. This was just no communication.
None.
She just made this situation in her head and she was like, this is what it is.
Yep. 100%
I'm
agree.
just going to not talk to this person.
Yeah.
And it was so frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah. Because to your point, she basically started panicking. I think that if she loved Mason so much that she loved Deaton, the father of the baby, I guess Deaton Jr., I don't know. She doesn't really have the junior there. So I always mess up when I was trying to say the name because I did not want to get confused on the pod, but I will be. But I don't think she wanted to lose Mason because she already lost her first love. She doesn't want to lose her second in a way because of how important he became to her. I mean, and granted, during the timeline of her pregnant and all of that, he got injured during football for
Mm-hmm.
his first time playing, for the college. So I think that even built their bond too. So like, I don't know. There was just so much that was going on in her head. And I know we got her perspective because obviously it's the dual
Mm-hmm.
POV and stuff like that. But there wasn't this big bang thing that I expected to happen. When we learned out more, I go, okay, I understand this and I respect having these type of conflicting issues and stuff like that. I can't imagine. Again, I'm going to say that 5 million times probably through this thing because I
Mm-hmm.
don't want anyone to take it in a way that I'm
No,
screwing
yeah,
over her
I'm right.
grief. Like I don't, maybe I'm self-conscious about that one. So
I'm right there with you. Like I have never experienced this,
no, so
so
I'm talking with person who, dated someone, oh, it didn't work out. Okay, whatever. Now we're moved on. It wasn't the like they died, I'm pregnant, now I'm loving someone new. Like
yeah,
that's not what happened in my
it
life.
seems like a lot.
Seems like a lot to juggle. I don't know.
At 16,
Yeah. I get panicked just doing a little bit of chores around the house. I don't think I could
yeah,
handle that. But there was just so much that I think it relied too much on that of just you need to be
yeah,
feeling this grief. You need to understand her situation to feel for the whole book. And I wish there was a little bit more to her. We've said it earlier, but I just really
yeah,
wish there was more to her to bring it to Mason. Like it would have been so much better.
yeah. I feel like she wasn't fully fleshed out for me, the character,
Yeah.
because I feel like if you're going in with that experience, you already have that connection. But someone
Yeah.
who is going in that doesn't have that experience, I'm not connected to her. I can feel for her, but she was making a lot of things that were really frustrating to read. So it's just like the more the book went on, I was like, okay, I can't defend you
Yeah.
anymore. You're just not doing anything. Also, just going back to the Deaton thing,
Yeah.
totally understand her naming the baby after the dead baby daddy.
Yeah.
So sweet.
Yeah.
I love it. Could we have given the baby a nickname? Could he have been, instead of Deaton Jr., DJ?
Yeah.
Mason would refer to him as Little
And that was
D.
perfect.
I just wish that was like consistent because sometimes it got confusing. Like, are you talking about D in your baby or D in your baby daddy?
Yeah. Yep. I'm with you.
That got a little confusing to me.
Yeah.
But, you know, again,
Yeah.
style choices.
Exactly. Because I feel like we're almost there and I want to ask you and I don't want to jump across, but like what the hell did you think about Chase being in this story? Because I have comments and I feel like I was gonna get there anyways with my next comment, but I wanted to give you the space because I briefly saw your notes and I go, she needs to speak to this.
Thank you so much for giving me a safe space to talk about this. Why? Why? No one likes him, okay? I'm sorry. He's like Dane to me from Fourth Wing. You can try all you want to redeem him as a character. I've made my mind up. He is dead to me, okay? He's never going to be a redeeming character. I'm never going to want him to win in the end. You are a scumbag for what you did in book one. Sorry. I'm leaving it at that. But this, like, having him come, like, she would text him, come hang out with me, and then Mason would show up. I left the book. I still don't know what their relationship is. Are they friends? Did he like her? Did she like him? I'm not sure. I think there is one line, though, where she just, I forget what it says, but it kind of alluded to the fact that she wasn't into him. But it's like, you're kind of leading him on. At least I felt like he had some romantic interest towards her. But honestly, I was just like, you've had 2 years to write this sequel. Why are we recycling a plot point? This was book one. He was the other guy in a love triangle, essentially. He was the scumbag at the end. And I was like, here we go. We have a couple. Oh, he's the third person thrown in. I've read this story already. I don't want you. She's not going to end up with him. Honestly, like, just give Chase someone off page. I'm sure she's building it up for him to get his own book. I don't think people are going to read it though, unless they're like diehard fans of the series. 'Cause I don't think he's redeemable.
Okay, they have not painted him in a good light whatsoever. And I think, like, to your point, the first one, some shitty stuff happened. He totally took advantage of the short-term memory loss, jumped it and said, "Oh, I'm going to sneak in here because I realized that I lost my opportunity."
Okay, sorry to cut you off,
Go right ahead.
but like, just because we obviously didn't have the podcast when we all read book one,
Yeah.
can you just put yourself in that shoes? Like, someone that you love gets in a car accident, is in the hospital, loses their memory, and you're like, oh, I know you're madly in love with this guy, but you can't remember him. I'm going to sneak in and be like, hey, girl, we've been it forever. Because she doesn't remember all the shitty things you did to
Yeah.
her. I'm sorry. That is an evil
And
person.
then on top of it, she thinks that she lost her baby from him, like with him.
I forgot about that part.
Yeah,
So
cause
even more.
yeah, cause she was pregnant, which I called that while I was reading that.
Yes.
I'm going back to
I
this book
remembered
for a
she was
second.
pregnant, but I didn't realize he tried to claim ownership of said
Well, if you
fetus.
think about it, she only remembers from the night after they had sex. It was one of those, she literally remembers from that moment. So,
Yeah.
of course, he's going to be the only baby daddy because she never had sex before that. He was her
Just,
first.
it's just so vile. You have to be such a manipulative, evil person to think, like, oh, this is the perfect time for me to get what I wanted. Instead of just being a man, waiting till she was back in her right and having a conversation with her and being like, hey, I'm so sorry. This is my feelings towards you. And then accepting her decision either way because you had the chance. But no, to go in when she literally doesn't have her memories, scum of the earth.
Yeah.
And then you want to, I'm sorry, and then you want to try and make him redeemable. Like, look at him helping this single mom. I don't care. You could literally write a whole book about how he does charity work, he works for all these nonprofits. I'm never going to like him.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people will feel that way. What I was more frustrated on, and you said it earlier about we're just recycling the plot of here's a love triangle or an attempt to. I respect the fact that there was someone there for Peyton when she didn't feel like she had someone because they both were kind of that outsiders. Peyton literally because she was just the sister of Parker and kind of was adopted by this group of friends. Chase because of the crappy stuff he did the book before, all of that. So I can understand putting them together and having them kind of be that, hey, let's get away from everyone because they're a little too much and we need some space. That was fine. I had no problem with any of that going on, but I just hated the fact that we had to drag him through the mud for the same situation of let's put it as a potential. And I understand the one point of when Peyton had pinged Chase to come over that it was the anniversary of Deaton's death. And I can understand that, but I don't think she realized that Mason was gonna remember
Mm-mm.
everything and come back regardless of what was going on for them. So it's one of those, like, I think she was looking for someone just to be a distraction. But I mean, and I don't even know, to your point too, I don't even know if Chase actually was interested in Peyton or if it was just a no, I know that you and Mason love each other. It's been obvious. Cause I think at one point he said it, dude, it's obvious. I'm not taking her back home. You two need to discuss this shit and figure your life out because
Mm-hmm.
you're destroying each other's lives from being separated. I just wish they didn't do that. I wish it wasn't Mason thinking that Chase was having this feeling. I would have rather it just been, I'm glad that she has someone to talk to, but I'm still going to fight to make her mine type thing. Make it that way. But it was just, I
Yeah.
was so frustrated. I was so annoyed because I'd rather if Chase just kind of became a quiet person. He was still there, but was working through his own demons of how shitty he was during the first one. And then maybe that's where he redeems himself. Like, give him something else. Because I think this just makes people hate him even more. Because it was so stupid, in my opinion. And I don't normally say that when people write books, but this is just so stupid. So
Yeah,
stupid.
it was stupid. It was a dumb choice. They have such a large friend group,
Yeah.
and so many of them are unattached. You have an entire football team. You could have brought a new character
Hmm.
in. Is there anyone else in this friend group, in this school, in this world that we live in that could have served the purpose of Chase as being just like someone who's there for companionship, someone from her hometown? Maybe one of Deaton's old friends comes and lives and wants to be there for her. You could have picked anyone else. So it is a choice to pick
Yep.
Chase. And yes, at the end, instead of driving her home, he drives her to the football house because, like, you guys need to be together.
Yeah.
And it's like, great. It still does not redeem what you did.
Yeah.
And it just irritated me. Like, when I saw him, I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yep.
Why is he here?
Yeah.
And I just also feel like not the best move having Noah and Ari were there, but they were such side characters, like the lowest of the side characters.
Yeah.
And it's like people fell in love with this series because of their book. And even the scenes they were in, it was giving absolutely nothing. The only substantial thing we get is Ari having that conversation saying that she might drop out of school to go be with Noah. That was it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
And if the book's not going to be written as an interconnected standalone, then I would have understood because books like that, it's, you know, we're switching to a new couple. It's all about them. The other ones kind of pop up here and there. You get little snippets of what's going on in their life, but it's not focused on them. But this was like, you needed to have read book one. No way could you have just picked up book two. She didn't explain any of the character relationships to each other in this one.
Mm-hmm.
So it clearly was a continuation. And if they're going to be there, give me something. Could we have had a chapter on them?
That would have been nice. Like a quick beginning to the book is you just get a little bit of a
Yeah.
now, or I don't know.
We got so many of the other side characters.
Yeah.
We got a shit ton of Chase.
Yeah.
We got that new kid who's on the football team. Like, he had a whole fucking side plot happening
Yeah.
and nothing on the main characters that we all fell in love with. I didn't love that part either.
Yeah. So what was interesting, and I'm curious if you think this, but I picked up on it at one moment, and I've been honing in on a potential this might be the case. But with Chase specifically, you know how I think Noah's best friend is Paige, the one that they've been friends for years, and you know
Mm-hmm.
all of that. She's now part of their friend group. She now owns a studio
Yep.
towards their home in California and all that. There was at one point that Chase and Paige definitely had animosity towards each other, or there was frustration or whatever. And I feel that that's going to be brought into something down the line. I'm not mad about it, but I don't know if I will want to get to that point just because of how much we keep putting him into a crappy position. Because I would have been fine
Yeah.
if we just hated him in book one and then slowly but surely he builds his way up through the rest of the series. Give me something in
Yeah.
each to redeem him instead of let's shit on him
Yeah.
again and then we hopefully make him look better in book three or whatever. I
Yeah. I wrote in my notes, like, he just looked so pathetic.
Yeah. I felt bad. I mean, I don't like
Like,
him,
that's
but I
all.
felt
Like,
bad.
I don't like him, and I'm just like, you're pathetic.
Yeah.
You just keep putting yourself in the same situation. These girls are never going to choose you. You're pathetic.
Yeah. I really wanted more of Brady too. He seems like such a goof. And
Yeah.
him and Cameron were thrown to the side. I thought Cameron was dating Noah's
And Cameron's the
friend.
next book.
Yeah, I thought she was
And I feel like
dating
I don't even,
someone.
I'm so, like, I was like, okay, I did not feel connected to her at all in this book to then be like, oh, I'm so excited for your book.
The next person honestly should have been Chase with how much he was in this book. Because that's
That's what
typically
I
what
put.
they do is you get
And
someone
I
bigger.
wrote these, yeah, I wrote the notes before I like looked it up and saw who book three was supposed to be about.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, book three has to be about Chase because he sucked in book one. Book
Yeah.
two, we put him in this pathetic situation again. Here's book three, he's getting his happy ever after. And then when they were like, Cameron, I was so confused. You did nothing to connect me to her at all.
No.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Honestly, this is really just like a bold statement, but I'm going to say it.
All right. What do you have?
If you told me two different people wrote these two books, I would believe you.
Yeah.
It's just like, how do you go from the masterpiece that book one was to this was like hot dumpster fire. You took away all, like, the reason why book one is great because, like, at the end of the day, it's a college romance, whatever, but you're so into it because of the found family between all the friends, the emotional connection between all of them as a group, especially between the love interests as well. I feel like all of that was stripped away because, yes, Peyton was friends with these people, but it felt like surface level friendships. They're only here to help me out with the baby. She wasn't running to any of them to have deep conversation about her grief. She really didn't talk to anyone because that was just her vibe. She just was like, I'm just a single mom. I'm doing my thing. I'm not going to talk. And Mason wasn't confiding in anyone. He was just shutting down. And so you took away that whole aspect of this, them being like, yes, they did things together, but I didn't feel like she felt like they were her family where she could run to at any moment.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you feel that? Like, am I just thinking this by myself?
No, 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 no. I'm with you 100%. Literally, it was tough because in book 1, Ari didn't really wanna be around Peyton because with the fact that she lost the baby during her accident,
Hmm.
she kinda became a little distant in that sense, but it does get over pretty quickly because after her and Noah reconcile and everything, she's fine with Peyton and the baby. That's cool. We see that in this book too, that they're obsessed with the baby and just wanna be around her
Hmm.
20 be around him 24/7. But to your point, the only person that was super close to Peyton was her brother, and even that relationship was tough because their mom didn't really want them to be around each other. He
Yeah.
was gone out for a long time during her childhood 'cause the mother was terrible, all of that stuff. So, she totally was just an extreme outsider, and I wish they had, to your point about building those relationships or someone for her to talk to, I wish someone in the core group was around and we focused maybe more during the off season of the sport and not when they were back at college of, you know what I mean? I wish there was more of the summer that we got
Hmm.
in the present time. That way you could have seen, oh, she had friendships during the whole thing. Because when they came back from school in the second semester, they, built this relationship with her and had that strength there, but she didn't neither of them talked to anyone, and I really wish that from Mason's side, I wish they had either Cameron or Brady come in more, and this is tying back to Cameron being the next book, is if they had
Hmm.
those 2 be more involved with Mason to figure out what the hell is going on. I mean, Cameron's doing the stuff at the daycare. Deaton's always there and she's taking care of him, and Mason literally comes all the time to check in on him and see
Hmm.
how his little man's doing and everything. Why don't we have more of those conversations of what's going
Yeah.
on there? Like, at least get his friends to pick it because in the first one, they all were in each other's crap. Everyone was in each other's business the entire time.
Yeah.
This one felt very, we're all gonna,
Disconnected.
yeah, we're just gonna be a little bit loner. And I
Hmm.
understand anxiety and depression and stuff can make you to the point where you don't talk to anyone, and that's fine. But again, this group is supposed to be like family. They all co-own a house together.
Hmm.
There could have been more to bring it together and keep that close knit instead of the random freaking car ride that they do to Noah's game. That was the only time
Yeah.
we get the core group together in trying to make something happen.
Only time.
Only time.
Yeah. And that was so quick. It was like we stopped at a gas station. Oh, we got there. These people are car sick.
Now we have to room together.
Yeah.
There was not a lot.
Yeah. At points too, it felt like I could really tell that everyone really cared about the baby. Everyone was obsessed with the baby.
Oh, yeah, it was the first
Rightfully
baby.
so.
They all wanted one of them to have a baby, but it didn't wanna be them
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
It
Like
was
rightfully so. You all love this little
yeah.
baby. But there were points where I was like, if she didn't have this baby, would they even be friends with
I
her?
thought the same thing.
Because she doesn't talk, like, she did not go out of her way to make friendships. Even like Lolly came to check on her
Yeah,
when Mason was hurt,
yeah,
and she just took the food and kicked her out.
yeah. I don't
And like, she didn't text anyone. She just seemed very, yeah, she was just like on her own, doing her own thing, which is fine. I get that. But that is what the magic of the first book
yeah,
was. I wish they would have kept that. And so I just feel like I really don't know what the creative direction for the book was, but I feel like everything that people loved about the first book, she did the complete opposite. And I'm sure
yeah,
it's really hard to write a sequel when your first book is so loved and so popular.
yeah.
And there's a lot of pressure on the second book. She wrote a book, so she's already better than me. And,
Yeah.
I'm just over here like giving my 2 cents about it. You're already winning because you've written books
Yeah.
and like you're already better. But it just felt like if that's the stuff people liked and that worked, recreate that in a different way.
Yeah. I think the traumatic situation that she had going on with the baby daddy dying the same night that she literally tells him that she's pregnant, she doesn't want to keep the baby, but then keeps the
Hmm.
baby, all of that stuff going on, and then her feelings for Mason, everything. They could have taken that and probably just made it into a whole different thing, and it probably would have been fine instead of reusing the first one.
Yeah.
Make it a whole different book, and it would have been perfect because you
Yeah.
can use that grief a different way.
And it sucks because, like you said at the beginning of the episode, like Mason just deserved more.
Yeah,
I think he had potential to be Noah Riley status, but
yeah,
we just paired him with a female main character who is written so poorly. Yes, she's going through grief, but that was her. She felt very one dimensional to me. Like she was just a single mom going through grief.
Yeah.
She had her photography thing on the side, but let's play into the fact more that she was not even 18 in this book. Like she is young.
Yeah.
We didn't see her going through her struggle of getting her GED. We saw none of that. I felt like a lot of things happened off page in this book, and that was hard. Some of the writing was very confusing to understand what was actually going on. Like I just felt like, honestly, again, another bold statement, another probably mean statement, but some parts of this book I was like, did you have an editor?
Yeah.
There's some sentence I had to reread multiple times. It's like, I don't know what you're trying to say here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just feel like Mason deserved more because he was a great character.
I
But
agree.
when your love interest is this girl that, like, as the book goes on, I'm getting less and less interested in, it's hard for me to root for you guys.
I know. I know. I was honestly rooting for them more because of the fact that she had the baby and she really did want him involved, but it was so tough to want her part of it too. Like I just wanted her to
Yeah.
be a little bit different and something else, or the photography to be a bigger thing, or like you said, the GED thing to be a bigger thing. There was so much off page that I would have rather if we focused on instead of this back and forth, back and forth. It would have been perfect if we had more of her story
Mhm.
instead of just,
Because,
yeah,
yeah, I think she genuinely is a very strong woman. Like, 16, you find out you're pregnant. You lose the person that you were going to go through this with. You have a terrible family
yeah,
outside of your brother. You have now moved your life to a completely different state. You get your GED, you get this dream internship, which then was turning into permanent positions for her. She was really successful when she would go on those photography shoots. You are taking care of this baby pretty much all by yourself. I wish there was more of that instead of just feeling like we were just constantly watching her to be like, I don't know what to do about my love life. And I feel like that they downplayed her strength as a person and made her feel like she almost sometimes gave victim energy.
100%. I think to exactly what you said about it was lowered her strength and she went through so much.
Mm-hmm.
We should be praising that. I mean, Mason literally said it 5 billion times on how much
Yeah.
he was such her it was such a champion for her. He was that person that totally made her feel better, but I would have loved to have seen it happen to her and seeing the strength build, and then,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing herself realize, no, I am strong. I'm okay. Because at
Yes.
the end when she goes to visit
The grave.
the grave and she starts talking the grave and everything, she does go through, I need to change because I can't be stuck in this back and forth. I can't be stuck in the past and the what ifs.
Yeah.
I need to be looking at, I'm alive, what's in front of me, what do I want to do, and deal with the grief and the wishy-washy vibes all the time, but don't let it take over my day to day. And like that's so
Mm-hmm.
much strength. You should show that, and instead of it just being a little more of the down in the dumps the whole time. I would have liked if we
No,
had more of that.
I completely agree. Okay, I have two things that I was dying to text you about while reading, but I was
Okay.
like, I will save it for the podcast. I feel like we've reached that point of the discussion where I just have to know. First thing, what were your thoughts around Mason's nickname for her, Pretty Little?
I didn't like it. I also is it Pretty Little Lies as a show?
Meg, thank you, thank you, thank you. This is why we are friends because the first time I read it, I was like, is this a nod to Pretty Little Liars? Does she like the
Liars.
show?
Yes. Meg, I did not understand. I go, oh, pretty something. What? But Pretty Little? I don't understand. Is she
I
small? What? Oh,
I
did you
still don't know where it
baby?
came from. Like the first time he calls her it, there's no description of why he's calling her that.
No.
And then Chase had Princess Peyton. He's like, it's better than Princess Puke.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, Princess Peach? Like, is this some Nintendo callback? Like, I'm so confused. But I'm sorry, Pretty Little. It doesn't
I
even make sense. It
no.
doesn't even make sense.
No.
And
Nope.
then he said it every time they talked.
Yeah. Yep.
It wasn't even like you could escape how bad it was.
It was
And
every
no
single
one,
time.
none of his friends made fun of him. Like, hey, dude, that's the worst nickname we've ever heard. She
No one
didn't feel
did.
the need to be like, "Hey, could you, like, change this to something better? Because I hate this." It was so bad.
No, I don't understand what that nickname was. And, he had little D for Deaton, and I thought that was cute and it fit and it was perfect because also with the fact that him and his dad have the same exact name, that's cool, yada, yada, yada. But hers just made no sense. Whenever people give nicknames anywhere in life and in books, it has to do with something that happened. So it's
Mhm,
a little thing that maybe between them is a joke, or
mhm.
she did something random one day, and then you're just gonna make that her nickname. I don't know what little means, except for
Yeah,
you're this little tiny baby of everyone else in the group. I don't know. I
it
didn't
made
get
no
it.
sense.
None.
Do you have a nickname for Patrick that you call him?
No. No, I mean, I
Yeah.
call him, like, hubby constantly, but it's just or the best I think really is just babe when I scream it is more of like, "Babe, can you do the laundry?" Like that type thing.
Yeah.
I don't know,
I
you guys or
guess
I don't know if you and Matt have something?
no.
Okay.
Oh, I mean, we've been dating for almost 6 years,
Yeah.
and I mean, he likes to go by Matt, but I call him Matthew
Yeah.
because I feel like it's just more sophisticated, you
Yeah.
know? Occasionally, like, I'll call him Squish, but
Yeah.
it's just, like, more so about making fun of him. It's not anything endearing, and he'll call me Renee because that's my middle name, and he knows I don't like it.
Yeah.
So, like, none of our nicknames are endearing. It's, like, to annoy the other person, and that's so funny, though, that you say the babe thing because this was maybe, like, we had been dating maybe, like, a year and a half in, and Matt commented. He was like, "Do you ever notice that we only say babe when it's in like a negative way?" Like he goes, "I always know when you're annoyed with me because you'll say babe." And same with him. When he's frustrated, he'll be like, "Okay, babe, whatever you want, babe."
Yeah.
We never say it in like a, "Hey, babe, how are you? Love you so much." It's always like, "Babe, come do the
Yeah.
dishes." Or like, "Thanks so much for doing this, babe."
I
It's
asked you
always in
10
like
times to do this, babe.
condes- a condescending way. So yeah. So I can't relate to the nickname
Nope.
thing, but I'm sorry. If he was calling me pretty little, I'd be like, erase that from your memory right now.
Yeah, please call me something else. Let's start over again. My name is Peyton. Can you call me something
Call
else,
her
please?
Little P.
I can't even keep a straight face with that type of nickname, but
It was bad. It was bad.
it's so
Very
bad.
bad.
So bad.
And it was throughout the whole book.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and then my second thing I need to talk about. So I think we're about 75, maybe 80% through the book. We get our first spice scene, which is in the before timeline.
Hmm.
Why was that the cringiest fucking thing I've ever fucking read?
Was this the tub?
No, Meg, this was like when I think they had porn on the TV or a
Oh,
movie or
yes.
something.
Yes, 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 yes. I'm sorry. I
And
forgot
it was
about
so
that.
abrupt. It was like they come home from Disneyland.
Yeah.
You just came back from Disneyland. You're exhausted. You've been walking around that park. You just got off an airplane. And then next thing I know, he's sticking his hand down his pants and groping himself.
I didn't
And there's
understand.
people on the TV moaning. And I was like, what is happening? And then mind you, he's been saying this cringy ass nickname the whole book. It doesn't even seem like she likes him really. And then next thing you know, he's like being all dominating her, like,
Yeah.
open the legs, do this. And I'm like, what is happening? It was
Yeah.
probably the worst written spice scene I've ever read.
Okay. So there is something to be said when you have a quieter, but there's still a powerful force of a main character. I won't even go any gender
Hmm.
whatsoever. And when they turn into a little bit more of that dominant side and their voice deepens or something happens. Like, we've seen that in
Yeah.
so many different ones. Um, but I don't know where that came from. Was it just oh crap, we gave them a decent amount of spice, a respectable amount of spice in the first one, and I literally have lost that through the entire thing. We're going back to the timeline. I'm bringing us back the whole thing. If we started off where we met them, Deaton died, she had the baby, they built this friendship, whatever, they have this spice. At least give me something, but this felt very Oh, we loved our time in Disneyland, and, we couldn't fuck under the fireworks, but, like, let's just finger bang our own selves.
Mickey and Friends really got me going.
I know it's a magical place, but for
I
Christ's
was
sake.
having a magical time. I'm ready for my happily ever
Yeah,
after.
right?
I just it was like the Disney that part was weird after Disneyland. Like, I'm sorry, we've all been on a Disney vacation where you are fucking
Your
exhausted when
feet
you come home.
hurt. You do 20,000 plus steps a
I'm like,
day.
get away from me.
Dude, give me a
But
foot massage. I don't even like feet, but give me a
honestly,
foot massage, thank you.
yeah, honestly, I was so caught off guard though because I was not expecting spice in this
Mm-mm,
book, even though the
mm-mm.
first one was, because they didn't. Yes, you were trying to figure out like this relationship they had, but I don't know. I did not feel like any. I could tell that they loved each other, but I didn't feel sexual chemistry between them. And like some books, you're like, okay, you guys are like, there's so much tension. Like, let's just get to the fucking.
Yeah.
This, I was like, I'd be fine with a hug.
Okay.
But then the whole aspect of there's people moaning on the TV, and I'm like, are you watching porn? What are you
So then I
doing?
was also gonna say, okay, 2 points. So I'm looking at my fingers as if I gotta make sure I go through my 2 points here because I'm fired up right now, Meg. You know when we say
It's so
that
bad.
banging with the purpose, there has to be banging with the purpose. This, even though they were banging themselves. They were having so fun. It didn't bring anything to the story. Was it just supposed to be a connection that she wasn't ready for them to actually, bang it out and see how it goes? There was nothing there that made the story progress, in my opinion. At least, I don't know.
No, it like literally my vagina curled up inside of itself
Yeah,
when I read this scene. Like I was just like, I've normally I'll read them,
yeah,
I'll read them, get some pointers.
yeah.
This one, I literally was skimming. I was like, I need to get through this because I'm cringing. My butthole is clenched because I can't. Like, this is the most uncomfortable thing I've ever read. And then it got worse at the end when they decide they're going to be together and he's like, get in the bathtub.
Okay, that's where I thought I completely forgot about the movie
How did
scene.
you forget about Disneyland?
No, I remember Disneyland, but I skipped because I just couldn't understand it. I didn't understand why it was important. If it's important to the story, I remember everything. But
I only remember it because I just was so like, what the fuck
but
am I
the
reading?
tub thing was also just okay. He did not show any type of dominant. I'm gonna like, yes, he took care. He had that hero vibe the entire time. He wanted to make sure she was taken care of. But actually, with anyone he interacted with, he wanted to make sure they were okay. But
Yeah.
there was none of that showed signs of him taking over and wanting
No,
to be
yes.
the main focus of like sit down or
Like,
do
yeah, it felt
this.
so out of character.
Right.
And yeah, like it'd be more like if he was like really nurturing and like, taking care of her and making sure her needs are met. But it was like, do this. You're not getting out of here until you have this. And I'm like, whoa, buddy. It just felt like he took a bunch of steroids and then went to have sex with her.
Light
And then
switched completely in that point.
I could like remove this from my mind when it was just flirting and the texting and it just building a nice relationship.
Yeah.
But the second they got to the spice scenes, I was like, is she legal? And it's all I can think about. I'm sorry. I don't care if it's a 2-year difference, 3-year difference. Like, is she 18
So I want to say yes because I thought that
at that
I
point?
think at that point she did turn 18 because she had the baby when she was 17. So it was one of those
Okay, so that makes me feel
pregnant
a little better.
16, baby 17, fucking
Now
with
she's
with
18.
Mason at 18.
Yeah,
But it was just because I don't think can you even write scenes like that with underage? I don't think so.
I don't know.
I don't think
I'm
so.
sure you could. There's probably a community that would like
There
it.
probably is a whole group that thrives on that, but at least for me, that's a
Yeah.
no, thank you. That's a no for me,
Yeah, it's like
dog.
all I can think about. Like, yeah. No, it was just like, I'm sorry. It was a like cute. I don't know. I just don't think this book needed spice, and that says a lot.
Yeah.
We like our spicy scenes. We like our smutty books. This, they just like it was a nice relationship,
Yep.
really focused on grief. I was not thinking about their sexual chemistry
Mm-mm.
between the two of them, and then it was like, hey, I went to the gravesite. Like now I'm ready to fuck you,
Yeah.
and he's like, get in the bathtub.
Yeah. Someone's babysitting the kid. Like, actually, no, I think the kid was just
And then
having
it
night
was
swept on the
like,
floor, but whatever.
yeah, and then it was like the bathtub happens, and then the next morning she's like, "Oh, and I went 4 rounds," and I'm like, "I'm sorry."
What?
4 rounds? You have to mother. You have to be a mother today.
Breastfeed, have a round.
Yeah,
Play with
that's
the
the other thing.
baby, have another round.
That's the other thing. Like in Disney, he couldn't even watch her breastfeed. And she wouldn't breastfeed around him. She was so self conscious about it. And then it's like, then you're sitting over here like dominating her in the bedroom. What?
To your point about it not needing spice, I actually think it would have been totally fine if it was a quarter of it completely removed, done. And then we just had a very, they, I guess, like, propounded their love to each other, said their love, whatever, peace, blah,
Yeah,
blah,
like
blah.
an off page
Right.
situation.
And then it was
We
more,
didn't need the
no,
details.
we didn't need any details. And then I really think it would have been better because the focus was so much on the baby and it being a family. I would have rather if it was more of that, the focus, than the spice of, oh, I probably should throw it in here because the first one had spice and I got to keep up with that type of
Yeah,
level. And I just, you put the spice in when it makes sense. And this did not make sense at
yes.
all.
Not all books need it.
No. Mm-mm.
They don't. And this one definitely did not. And I mean, if you're going to do it, you got to do it right.
Right.
You can't make it cringy.
Mm-mm.
And I felt so uncomfortable reading it.
There are two levels of spice. There is the Emily Henry spice that is very tasteful in the sense of majority of people could probably read it and say, "Ooh, that's enough for me." Then you have the rest of us who it's the you are getting every single type of word in there type of spice that you are just getting
Yeah.
full-blown spice. That's at least the 3 to 5 plus chili pepper spice vibes. I don't know where this was, but this was in the negatives for me. This was just I it would be attempted me writing it, and you would have laughed and said, "Meg, this is trash. Don't ever do this again." It was an
Yeah.
amateur writing. It was, in my
It was
opinion.
and she knows how to write it because she wrote it in the first one. Again,
Yeah.
was this a different writer?
I don't know. I don't
Because
know.
clearly, like, she knows what she's doing. I can't recall a time I've read a romance book and I've literally clenched my butthole reading the spice scenes because I'm just like, make it end.
Stop this now.
Oh my god, I wish I recorded myself reading those 2 chapters where it happened because I was just like, oh my god, go,
Yep.
go, go. Like,
Yep.
when is it going to be over? I like, if it was a movie, I'd be watching it like this. I
Is
hated
anything
it.
good gonna happen? If not, I need to go. I need to leave
It was
this
so
situation.
awkward. Oh my god, it was so awkward.
So
And I was
weird.
just like, I
Yep.
cannot handle
Mm-mm.
this.
Nope.
Um, and then I know I said 2 things, but then I thought of a third thing while
Yeah.
we were talking. Last little piece I want to touch on. How did you feel about that whole situation with, I think his name was Alistair,
Yeah.
the guy who is the second string quarterback, and then he's kind of been mean to Mason, and then it's because the girlfriend, which I only picked up on this from reading your notes because I was like, what is the actual lie? The girlfriend is pregnant with Alistair's baby, but said it was Mason's baby.
Yes.
I thought she just lied about a baby in general.
No, I think that she actually had a baby and she didn't want him to ruin his dreams of being starter for a football team.
I just felt like so unnecessary. We could have cut that.
It, again, I think it was just there to make Mason more frustrated and not feel like himself during the entire book, but I just don't think it was needed.
Yeah, I was just thought it was like teammate rivalries type thing. I also didn't love that football really was not involved that much in this book.
It's a freaking
It,
quarterback. You think we would have gotten more of him
it was
bringing the
very
team?
little.
It's his first it's also the first season that Noah's not there, so the team has to get
Yeah,
used to
I thought there was going to be
him.
more.
Yeah,
Hmm. It just would be like, oh, I was waiting for a text message after the game
that's it.
every time.
That's it.
Yeah, I just thought that was kind of a random thrown in side plot,
Yep.
especially because Peyton's there when this all unravels, and then very quickly the girl's like, oh, I lied.
Yeah.
And it doesn't cause anything between Mason and Peyton. It'd be one thing if like Alistair had said to her at the photo shoot, like, hey, Mason's having a kid with this
Right.
girl.
Hmm.
And then it caused some contention between them for a few weeks. And then
Actually,
he finds out. That might have been better,
now
but
that you say that, I'm sorry. I'm doubting my own notes. I don't even know if she had a baby. Because maybe she did
I
lie
don't know. But
because
then
because Mason and what was her name? Andrea?
Alana.
Alana? Whatever. A name? Whatever her name was.
Yeah.
They hooked up the season prior. So wouldn't
Yeah.
she have already had the baby But then
Yeah, I think
no,
so.
but then hold on, I'm getting so confused. Because then Cameron came out and was like, "You were asking me how to balance between having a fatherhood as well as playing sports
Yeah, it was
and
so this is what I'm saying, like, the
what?"
writing was not
I
clear
was so
of what
confused.
was actually
Okay,
going on.
I've completely reconfused myself
So I'm
after.
saying, like, the writing was very unclear that like, that's a point, like, was there an editor? Because someone would have flagged this. What's going on here?
I don't know. I feel bad. I feel like I'm shitting on this book and I don't mean to, but it's just there's a point where you take a really good opportunity for a series and this one just it just completely destroyed it for me.
Yeah, I
I'm
agree.
jumping
I
towards
mean,
the end of my thoughts there, but I really just completely
yeah, I
yeah.
know. I hate being negative about stuff. I mean, it is, like, fun to get riled up.
Yeah,
I hate,
I know.
going and, like, posting things where people can see it and, like, the
Yeah.
author could see it.
Mhm.
But I also feel like you're not going to love every book. There are a lot of people that I saw TikToks gave this 5 star, but I do think we are more in the majority. I think a lot of people felt like this one fell flat.
Yeah.
And I think that happens a lot with sequels. It's because there's just so much pressure.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, arguably, I don't think I would have liked this book if this was like the first book of a series. Even if the first book was just a mid for me, I still don't think I would have liked this one. But I think it is harder because you're then comparing it to the magic of the first book.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
like I said, Megan Brandy is better than us because she wrote multiple books. And I will never put out a literary masterpiece, so
Nope. I know what my writing
you're
is,
winning.
and it's horrible. And there's no chance I'm
Oh
ever
yeah,
gonna write it like that.
all the things that were like I could not write a spice scene.
No.
But like I'll shit on yours.
Yeah.
But I could never do it.
I'll give you my 2 cents, that you didn't ask for, but I can't write my own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
All in good fun,
Yes. Yep.
Um was there anything else like and any twists or shocking moments that you had?
No. I mean, there really wasn't anything shocking. I hate this because I always say to myself, "Ooh, do I wanna continue with a series that I love the first one, I was kinda meh on the second, what do I do with the future ones?" And I go back and forth because I get too hooked into the characters, and I love the main group of characters, but this one just did not do them justice, that I don't know if the
Mhm.
third one will make up for it. Do I try it and maybe DNF it if it really is bad? Fast forward
Yeah.
to the last 3 pages and see what happens and who they end up with type thing, but I don't know, I just hate that so much because I wanna continue it because I like the core group, but there wasn't any feelings there anymore that I was just, "Okay, I think I'm all set." I don't know, what about you? That was kinda my overall
Yeah.
shocker, I
My
guess,
over
for
like
me.
yeah, I had no twists or shocking moments really,
Yeah,
except for like that whole blow up at the end with Alistair that like still don't really know what's going on.
yeah,
And I just felt like it was
yep,
unnecessary. Um, but no, I guess like my closing thoughts, I agree with you. I don't think I would recommend this book to people.
mhm,
And I definitely would not like if I chose to reread the first one, I don't think I would reread this one. I also I mean, I haven't seen what the third one's about. I'm not sure if I would read it because I really don't feel a connection to Cameron
yeah,
based off of this book. I don't know. I don't think it's something I'm going to rush to be like, oh, it's out. Let me download it right now. But if, my content plate is empty, maybe I'll read it
yeah.
just to see if it brings back the magic of the first one. But I don't feel like, at least where we're at now in the series, I don't feel like the second one would be integral to the third book because Cameron, really the only thing you learn about her in this one is she's working at the daycare.
I think you could easily go from the first to the third because in the first one, Cameron is heavily involved because not only is
Hmm.
she best friends with Ari, but she's kind of seeing the guy that I think is friends with Noah and
Yeah.
that they had ran into when they did their random girls trip thing. Like there's a lot more there
Yeah.
that they just didn't continue through the story. So I think if I was interested, may reread the first just to get that feeling again and see how the
Hmm.
third is. But I don't know. I think there might be too much space in between each of the books too, because it's really tough when you get something like this too. That there's so many connected characters. Is if you don't give me
Yeah.
a beginning kind of summary of, oh yeah, X, Y, and Z is with this person but they went through so much last year. It kind of gives you that,
Hmm.
oh yeah, that's what happened. Okay, I can move on to the next person. That's what I like when
Yeah.
it's a little bit interconnected.
Yeah. And I was thinking a lot when I was reading this about the Boys of Tolman series that I read. August into like September
Mhm.
timeframe. So the first two books are on the same couple.
Okay.
So the second book picks up right where the first one ends. So you really need to like go right into it. The third and the fourth one are about her brother.
Okay.
And yes, the brother is heavily featured in the first two books, him and his girlfriend. Like you really get to know them. But I think you could pick up the third one because it starts at the beginning of their relationship. So
Okay.
and every time a character is brought up, they reintroduce the character.
I
Like, oh,
love
this is the
that.
guy on my team. This is my sister's friend. Even though if you've read the first two, you already know who those people are, they reintroduce it. I think that's what this one's missing, is especially because it was, I think it came out, the first one came out in 2021. So it, like 3 years in between it, you have to know going into it. A lot of people aren't going to reread it to go into the second one. They're just going to pick the sequel up. I
Yep.
think it was a miss not reintroducing or reiterating the family, like what the connection was, because I could not figure out who was family, who was friends. And part of it, halfway through, I was like, should I just go back and reread the first one to understand this better? Um, so I agree. I think the time between and then not giving a summary or just quickly reintroducing people in the first couple chapters was a big miss.
Yep. I'm with you 100%.
All right. Well, that's our thoughts on Promise Me Not.
Yep.
I really had high hopes. Like the last episode, we were like, oh my God, we're going to go on an emotional roller coaster. And it was not that.
I was emotional at points because I think it was just the grief, but there wasn't enough that the first book, I was in tears the whole time. I
Mm-hmm.
literally
Yeah.
prefaced Patrick before I read this. I go, I don't know how I'm gonna react. So if I'm just crying, let me be. But I did. There was nothing in that extensive vibe as the first one did for
Yeah.
me.
I know. When I finished, I said to Matt, I was like, I'm so upset right now. He's like, why? Was the book sad? I'm like, no. I was so excited for this book. I've been thinking about it for years.
Yeah.
And it was just
Yeah.
not it. That's like for me, like if Onyx Storm flops,
Oh
I'll be
no.
so upset.
No. No. No.
That's how I feel like when
Yeah.
you wait for something for so long and you're so excited, it's so built up in your head,
Mm-hmm.
and it just
It's not
doesn't even
there.
come close.
Yeah.
You're like, ugh. All right. Well, I think we can wrap that up and transition to the second part of the episode.
Yes.
Megan has finally finished Kingdom of Ash, which completes her read of Throne of Glass, which she's been giving updates throughout on the pod. I mean, you've been reading
Yep.
this for months because it is a humongous series. So, do you want to give us your thoughts on Kingdom of Ash and then series as a whole?
Yep.
And then
So
maybe what you're going to jump into next.
oh boy. So
Okay.
let me go over Kingdom of Ash quickly. So I really like the book. I broke it down into the two parts because I think that's crucial to my comments that I have. And I'm curious if well, I know you read it a lot earlier than I did. So granted, there might be things that kind of just blended of what the hell part it belonged to. Because ask me in a year, I probably won't remember. Um, Part one was so long and drawn out for me. I think I texted you this, but it was very much like Deathly Hollows part one from the movies because it was so much lead up to this explosive part two. Now, I think some of that's important. I think seeing that Maeve is torturing Aelin and you know her going through all of that torture, there's a lot that we find out secretly about Maeve that even you know she's kind of questioning of if it's this a dream, is this actually happening, all that stuff. We get more about each of the core groups as they split across the lands and all of that. I just don't know if it could have been if that could have been cut or if and I think I've said this a few times when we've done the reviews of the series, but I don't know if SJM was contracted to do 8 books, but I think this could have been 5 to 6 because the last book had so much in it that it could have been brought into when you do the tandem read a bit is maybe she is captured and that's part of some of the book and then the you know, finding her or whatever is the new one. I don't really know how to split it up, but that was my biggest thing of the entire part one of this was just it was super long. I absolutely loved in part two that I'm saying her name wrong in my head, but Elodie or
Mm-hmm.
Elid, I don't know how to say her name. Like I want to say Elodie, but there's no O in it. So
Yeah, that's how I said it though.
okay. her, Lysandra and Yrene, how they take down everyone at the end, that was probably my favorite part of the entire book. Was I knew that Maeve and Aelin were going to go head to head. That was guaranteed. You knew that the cadre, the boys, all of them were going to
Mhm.
come and help her, whatever. But I just really liked how the three women took down everyone when he definitely was looking for Yrene, because apparently she's this extreme healer compared to everyone
Yeah.
else. I guess we get vibes of that, the fact that she was able to take the Valg out of people, but that was just kind of implied in a way towards the end of that book of how powerful she was. But I just like that. That was awesome. I had a couple hot takes about this book in the series, but I quickly want to touch on the overall series before I go into the interesting points of the Kingdom of Ash book. But
Mhm.
I loved the entire series. I thought it was really good. Super long at times, though. Like we had said, and I know you had said it when we talking about the tandem read, specifically the, was it Tower of Dawn, was more Cole
Mhm.
and Yrene's point of view. I think that one could have just been, half that book and it would have been fine. Because
A
even Nesrin
novella.
and Startalk would have been fine as a novella. It would have been fine. It would have been totally good. But
Mhm.
I don't know if she had goals that she had to hit. And it was fine. She definitely hit it. There was a lot in there and it was totally worth it. But the amount of information, I felt like I had a hangover afterwards. I needed a pause for a couple days before I got into another book because it was just so much information. I don't know if you remember feeling that way because it did take a couple months, but wow, it was a lot.
I just remember like getting to Empire Storms, and I was like, okay, I have 3 books left. And I just remember powering through them, and I just went boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
Because at that point, I was just like, I need to get this series off my list. I have been in the middle of this for 5 months,
Yeah.
and I really don't remember much of Kingdom of Ash. I think because I was so at that point, like, I just want to get this over with to say I completed it, that I really was just like going and not really processing things. But I remember getting to the end and being like, okay, thank God that is
Yep.
done. My brain is mush.
Yeah. It was just
It's
so
so much stuff that you
ah,
need to remember as a reader.
yep. I went through all my notes because I took notes on my phone just because it was easier than
That's smart.
highlighting stuff because I knew I'm really bad at highlighting because it doesn't even make sense to why I highlighted it and I don't remember
Hmm.
why. And I, over the entire series and how I read it, with the Assassin's Blade being, I think I read it third, which I did enjoy that. But there were so many people that did come back. It basically, the entire Assassin's Blade was just you need to remember every single one of these groups that you meet in all 5 parts of the novella because um, they're all coming back. Every single one of them. It wasn't
Hmm.
as if someone betrayed her. All of them came back and were on her side. So there was a lot of buildup. I was actually shocked, and I know you said you read them pretty quick, the last 3, but I was shocked that there weren't any. Aha, you thought we were your ally, but we're really not, and we're going over to the
Hmm.
other side. And I just don't know if it's because we built up Erwin in the area of Morath so heavily that they didn't need any twist. It was it was kind of just like, no, 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 here's this big bad enemy and we're gonna fight him and that's it. But
Hmm.
maybe I just always expected there's some type of twist gonna happen. I don't know. The only twist that kept happening were just random people that they definitely interacted with either way earlier on in the series and I did not keep track of it, or it happened off page. But there was Fae that were with wolves that came in at the
Hmm.
last minute. I don't remember shit about them being in the series, so I think I either forgot or it was,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like it was one of those.
She must have had a crazy like whiteboard
Oh,
situation going on to remember all the characters, the groups, where they lived, their plot points, to be able to bring them all back at the
because that
end.
was impressive. I'm gonna say it right now, impressive that you can take something to that level. And also, she started this when she was in high school.
16.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you. I did not think of anything at that age to make it into a story. I could barely write an essay. I hated
Yeah.
writing so much.
Yeah.
It's
It is definitely impressive the world she builds in
wild.
this, and how everything is really connected,
Yeah,
but almost the point where it felt like a little too much.
yeah. Yeah.
where I think you'd have to read the series multiple times to fully grasp every little nuance that's in it.
Yeah, I had said to you, I think if I was to reread it, it's going to be a couple years down the line because I need I need to take a break with how long it took. I am curious that if I just look at the days that it took total of each book and put them together, how long it actually took. I should have done that actually before we did the pod because I just did a huge break in between the ending books because I needed a break and just needed something lighter to read. But
Mhm.
I don't know. I think it's a down the line type thing. It's definitely not like Akatar with hers that I could easily pick that up and probably reread it every year and would it be fine.
Yeah.
It's just not that series and that's fine. And I know people love this series and I think it's their vibe of the amount of political stuff. It kind of I've never seen Game of Thrones, but in the sense of it reminds me of so many people that are
Mhm.
involved and there's different areas and then they all come together and all that stuff. And that's my
Yeah.
high level knowledge of Game of Thrones without like any
That's a good
detail.
point. I've never read the books. I've seen the show though,
Yeah.
and yeah, it is a lot of different areas, a lot of different groups of
Yeah.
people. But the way you're given it is in such a slow manner. You do spend a good amount of time in each place, so you start to really
Yeah.
grasp it. Where I think that was my issue with this is it felt like at some points you were really bouncing around a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do love the multiple POV. I do like that because it kept the books going. Still love Manon, one of my favorite characters. I would have loved to get some, epilogue with just her and Dorian. I so want to know what goes
I
on.
love them.
The biggest thing that was so sad to me, and I don't know if you felt this, but the 13, that one broke me out of
Mm,
anything. I don't know why the witches had such a spot in my
I loved them.
I loved them. And they became such a pivotal part of the entire
Hmm.
series, entire thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I loved the witches, and it's funny because the first book where they're introduced, you're so confused. Why am I getting these random POVs of these witches? You have no
yeah.
clue how they're going to tie in, and
Why
then
do I
yeah,
care for
it
them?
becomes such a
Yeah,
big part.
such a big part. I mean, they're the whole reason why they were able to, take a pause basically from fighting. And
Hmm.
it gave enough time that Aelin, Rowan, so on and so forth were able to come and, save the day in a way. The one death that was just kind of it was sad, but I didn't think it hit as big for me was is it Gabriel? It was um Aiden's dad, the other Fae.
Doesn't even don't even remember him, so clearly it didn't hit me that hard.
Okay, clearly didn't hit that hard. Yeah, he did it to sacrifice himself to save his son and make sure that the gates were closed and stuff like that so that the
Mm,
enemies weren't coming in, but they just didn't have as much time together that I think it would have been more of an impact. So I think she just needed some other person to die from the core group because there weren't that many deaths. Am I weird in assuming that
yeah,
there's gonna be a lot of deaths? Because not
I
like
thought there was going to be too, because like even in Harry Potter, there's some big major deaths. I
right.
remember when the king, Dorian's dad,
Yeah.
when he died, I was kind of upset.
Really? Interesting. Was it you didn't
Yeah,
know where it was going the series or just overall?
I
Just
just because doesn't he have a little bit of a redeeming moment
he
right
comes
before his death?
he comes back in the
Yeah, I think that's
end
why.
and he's the nameless person and the nameless is their
Yeah,
prize. Yeah.
like when you get like the redeeming part of him, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, he's actually like, yeah, he was bad, but like,
Yeah.
because there was a Valg inside of him, right?
Yeah, and he had fought it for so long to
Yeah,
keep Dorian and
that
everything
like,
safe.
yeah, it,
Yeah.
it just like humanized him to me, and I was
Oh,
like
yeah.
sad about that one.
Yeah, and I also didn't at that point, I did not know where it was going that, okay, who's this person that was such a big part of the first 4 books? Like, even the prequel or the
Hmm.
Assassin's Blade was he was important in that one because he had gotten rid of magic, all that stuff, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It was so much. So much. I think my favorite part at the end too was Mala and the gods basically she kind of put them to the hell realm and said,
Hmm.
make it a better world without any gods or anyone I guess getting in the way and fates and stuff like that. So that was interesting. Um but I did have one point that I think I had texted you about and I need to know your thoughts because I have not read Crescent City, so I know that there's some overlap between the
Mhm.
mass first or whatever we want to call it. What is with that Manon's crown reminded me of Feyre's crown that she has in the Night Court with the stars kind of plucked from the sky and it being super bright and everything. Is it just me thinking that these are kind of similar worlds but different people are in them? Because it was very weird of this was when we focused on more women being the
Mhm.
leaders because every single area had a woman who was more the focus of being the queen. And then the High Lords are more what we see in ACOTAR, but I just like felt some weird connection there, even though that they're definitely in two different worlds. And I don't know if I'm just getting way too far into it without having any detail.
Yeah, when you texted me that, I was like, "Oh, I don't remember." Like, I definitely at this point don't remember that
Yeah.
connection, and I don't remember like connecting those in the moment when I because I read ACOTAR and then Throne of Glass. I
Yeah.
don't remember like connecting that. Um, I will say though, Crescent City, as of right now, there's only 3 books out. There is overlap with ACOTAR,
Okay.
and it is ACOTAR post Silver Flames.
Oh, is that why people say to read Silver
Like
Flames
you should
first?
like if there's another ACOTAR book, you should read Crescent City first because there
Got
is
it.
a like it's post Nesta's book.
Okay. Makes
Um,
sense.
at this point, there's no if there is a Throne of Glass overlap, it's just like a quick little thing. It's not like like Crescent City. She goes and she's living in the ACOTAR world.
Okay.
She is interacting with the characters.
Okay.
Um, and that's all I'll say about that. Like, I won't give you like any spoilers of like what she's doing, but she's like actively interacting with those characters. She's not interacting with the characters of Throne of Glass right
Okay.
now, but there is a point where she's kind of like she's falling between worlds almost, and she can see snippets of a bunch of different worlds. And I think at one point she does see the Throne of Glass world,
Okay.
but she lands in the ACOTAR world. Is kind of how she gets there.
Okay, because they do the
Um,
same exact thing when Aylin's going back home from dealing with the gods. She
yes,
sees
it's that same
Feyre.
concept.
Okay, because she goes, I'm falling between worlds and I see everything. And
Yeah,
she
in Crescent
sees
City, she like
Reese.
falls between.
Yeah, because Reese definitely like slows her down to be able to allow her to get back to her world.
Yeah, it's the
So,
same concept
yeah.
in Crescent City.
Okay.
But there's as of right now, where Crescent City is, there's not like she's not interacting with
Overlap.
Dorian or any of those characters.
Yeah.
But so I would say like the Mass verse, the best way I can compare it to is Marvel. Like
Yeah.
they're all living in their own individual worlds and dimensions, I would say,
Okay.
but they're all like part of this bigger concept, and there is an ability to kind of bounce between the two or between them. And then again, I don't want to give too much away, but like in Crescent City, when she transfers over to the ACOTAR world, there are some similarities that she notices, like items that are in the ACOTAR world that also exist in her world, but they
Okay.
have different meanings.
That's what I
So
thought.
I would say maybe the crown is something similar like that. Like it is the same crown that exists in all the worlds,
Yeah.
but maybe it holds different. It's a little bit different shaped, or
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly
That's
what
all I
I
want to
got.
say without
Oh,
like
no.
giving away more. But
No, no, that's fine.
um,
That's what I got to was it seemed like there were similarities, but enough differences that it wasn't as if this took place before ACOTAR. It wasn't the world before the High Lords took over type thing. You know what I mean? It wasn't as if
no,
this
I would say these
burned
are
to the
probably
ground.
all happening at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because Crescent City is so futuristic because it feels like it's taking place like in modern times or even a little further into the future than we are right now.
Yeah.
But so when she goes back to Akachar, like they don't have cell phones,
Yeah. Okay.
but the
Yep.
world is happening at the same time as the Crescent City world.
Yeah.
Like
Y-
it's not like she's going back in time; she's just transferring to a different world.
Yeah. And I mean, in ACOTAR too, we get glimpses of with some of the I don't want to call them creatures, but I guess the creatures who came from different worlds and they said that there was a sliver in time and they just
Hmm.
kind of came into something else. And similar to how the Valg literally were in a different world and they just wanted to take over this world and completely destroy it and make it their own. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
I
so
think
there's a
it's
little bit of that in Crescent City too. Like
yeah.
these creatures can kind of like slip through openings in the
Yeah.
fabric. I would say, like,
Yeah. That
so I think that's what like, the best way I can compare it is like how Marvel has set itself up.
yeah.
With you know,
It makes
there's
sense.
all these things happening And while like when you go to each of them, it feels like they're set in different times, they're all technically happening at the same time,
Yeah. So I guess kind of
which is
just
so meta.
copy each of us, but there's multiple varieties going on in different worlds. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. That's kind of what I figured too of. It just seemed like they purposely put in clues of this could be something that's in a different series, but it might not mean that, oh, Manon is technically one of the first of the Night Court, group, and that the crown goes to
Yeah.
Feyre. Like it wasn't like that type of thing. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know who the hell knows down the line, but
And I don't think she's writing any more Throne of Glass books, but when she did an interview, I think it was the one she did with the Today Show, she kind of gave the roadmap for her books. And after Crescent City had come out, the third one, because it was like promo for that book, she
yeah.
said her next book was probably going to be Akatar 6. She was working on it. And then there's one book she alludes to in the like kind of the runway. And she was like, I'm not saying what it is, but it's a book that people really want. And I think people are speculating it's another Throne of Glass book,
Interesting.
which I think, but I do think we are building to this will be one big universe and they're all going to tie together in some way. Like they're not going to continue on. I think the end will be them coming together.
Yeah, and I'm curious too. I don't know where you could necessarily go from here because at the end, everyone's kind of living their happily ever after. Each
Hmm.
pair kind of has been married off in a way. Each of them is
Yeah.
is running their own area of the world and doing that type of thing. So I just don't know
Yeah.
if it's going to be a fast forward and here's some info there that maybe ties into the rest of the universe. I don't know. It
Yeah. Or maybe if I think Crescent City has probably one more for the last house.
okay.
Um, Akatar, who knows how many more she has. And
I
so
don't
the only
know.
thing I can think of is maybe it's not like a standalone Throne of Glass 9. It's like
Yeah.
a combined book of all three.
Could be to tie it together as a final in a way.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think once you read Crescent City, you'll see more like why people are like, oh, because I think even like reading Akatar on its own and then Throne of Glass, like, yeah, Throne of Glass, you get that little snippet of Feyre and Rice from Akatar,
Yeah.
but you're not like thinking, oh, these are all connected. It's just like, but then Crescent City, it's like really where she lays the groundwork. Like, no, I'm building a bigger universe.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was some rumor or speculation that she had a fourth series coming down the line at some point. And
Oh, I haven't heard that.
yeah, I don't know if it's just, how you get random things on your feed that are
Hmm.
just someone probably typed it up, put her photo on it and said, oh, there's rumors about this. And then it goes through the rumor mill. Um, I I don't know if it's just me, but there's a point where bringing too many worlds together becomes difficult. I mean, Marvel's dealing
Hmm.
with that with how they're just putting in so much and they've had to tune it down a bit because it's just ridiculous, but there's
Yeah.
too many people to remember, but I would be fine if she had a fourth one. I just would like if it was separate entirely and it had nothing to do with these
Yeah. I
three were
think
her core and that's it and then she just moves on to
yeah.
other stuff. I'd be fine with that.
Yeah. And because it kind of puts pressure on the reader to like, oh, you really enjoy Akatar. Now you kind of have to read Crescent City
Yeah.
to find out because is what happens in the Crescent City books going to be the bridge for the next Akatar? Like, do you
Right.
need that for the next Akatar book,
Yeah.
or could you just read Akatar and it's fine? So I think it does get confusing for like hard for the reader because now it feels like okay, well, I have to read all these other series to be able to finish the series that I actually like.
Yeah. I'm with you because I just don't know if it actually makes sense if they because I hate when you have to read a series and then they say, "Oh no, now you need to read these other, you know, certain amount of books that you can understand the rest of the series." Make it a
Oh,
whole
me with Zodiac right
make
now.
it a whole freaking series then. Don't give me, if it's meant to be
Yeah,
a prequel, if it's meant to be another one that just references, that's cool, that's fine. Give me the option to not have to read it because there are definitely people that are obsessed with ACOTAR, live and breathe ACOTAR, probably don't care about the rest of our series because they don't want to.
yeah,
But then there's the other half, probably like us, who just wanted to read the rest to see how the rest of her series are. And then
yeah,
there's the extreme diehard SJM fans who will read everything and anything that she comes out with and will be able to give those I don't know, touch points of what's going on between them.
yeah.
But not everyone's
Now,
that. So you can't really
no, I
go to
agree.
those. You can't cater to that group.
Now, between the two that you've read, so you've read Akatar
Yeah.
and you've read Throne of Glass, which how do you rank them? Like which one's one, which one's two for you?
So ACOTAR is still number one for me.
Yeah.
As much as I loved Throne of Glass series as a whole, I just felt more with ACOTAR with all of the characters. With Throne of Glass
Hmm.
for me, obviously Aelin starts off as Selena and goes through all of that stuff, but then at some point it kind of just becomes that her character has stopped in a way in terms of growth, and we do get
Hmm.
more growth towards the end of the fact that she's getting more powerful and having to go against Maeve and doesn't have her powers at that point too much and just has to fight, hand-to-hand combat, kind of how she was when she was an assassin. But I just don't I don't know, the rest of the characters kind of were just there. They weren't
Yeah.
really I don't know, they weren't there for me as much as ACOTAR was. And I know other people feel the opposite, so that's totally cool. But for me,
Yeah.
yeah, ACOTAR is still number one.
Yeah.
And I think it's
I
going to
agree.
take a lot to get something else to pass it for her.
I also just think like at the end of the day, we like romance books,
Yeah.
and Feyre and Rysand just have like a really good romance plot uh, within the fantasy book. I didn't really feel a huge connection to Aelin and Rowan,
Yeah.
and even in Crescent City, like I don't feel a huge connection to
Yeah.
that couple.
Like I liked Rowan. I had no problem with him. I thought he was pretty cool, and I think what could have been there would have been different. But this series was definitely not a romantasy. It was more a fantasy,
Hmm.
that type of interesting realm first, with romance thrown in there. I don't know if it was because fans were asking for it or if maybe she just played it that way that she didn't want it to be the focus. But I mean, I think my favorite still, I think I sent you the meme the other day, was, here's Aelin and all these badass things. And she was starting off as Selena and trying to go through all of this stuff. And Dorian and Cole are just like, do you like me though? Like, that's literally
Yeah.
the whole beginning half, which I loved. And then
Hmm.
it just kind of went and ballooned
And she
after
ends
that.
up with neither of them.
Neither of them. And I really like that too.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what are you gonna? Do you have a series you're gonna read next,
Um, in
or are
terms,
you taking a break?
oof, I don't know. I think I'm taking a little bit of a break, but I do actually want to start Crescent City soon. I was gonna wait till next year, but if I can fit it in this year, I might.
Yeah.
We'll see. But it's just that one just took so much out of me that I need a break and probably just need to do more quick reads in between that
Yeah.
aren't super crazy. Typical me,
Understandable.
also want to read Harry Potter again, so it's one of those like I gotta set myself up for
Yeah.
that
Take a
series.
break. Decompress a little.
Exactly. Yep. So for our next episode on November 20th, we will be deep diving Megan Quinn's latest release, How My Neighbor Stole Christmas, and Lori Gilmore's Christmas Tree Farm. I'm just going to pause there for a second. I don't know about you, but I have literally been seeing so much hype over these that I cannot wait to read them. So I
I'm
don't know.
so excited. I just keep seeing everyone talking about the candy cane
Yep.
scene in the Megan Quinn book, and then Christmas Tree Farm. I'm so excited for because I really liked Pumpkin Spice Cafe, but I loved the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, and I'm so excited for the third
Yep.
one.
I can't wait because I'm really hoping it lives up to the vibe the second one is. I'm not done with the second one just yet, but I hope it's
Mhm.
living up to that same
Yeah,
vibe.
they're cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. I think our next one's going to be an interesting conversation
Hmm.
that we have. And then I guess if more things, Booktrovert that you want to see from us, see updates on episodes, other things that we're talking about, follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Booktrovertspod. Rating, review, book recommendations, because now that I'm done with this series, I could use some, and I know McKayla will take any and all recommendations as well. Um, I guess we'll see you next time. So, bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye.